Hey, you're listening to the... I did it again. Hey, you're listening and watching the DIY show. And today, we're going to try our whole new custom-made intro. So this is going to be a first for every one of you out there. And we're back. I'm hoping that went through well. I'm not 100% sure because this is the first time I'm trying to completely break the show this time around. I'm actually using a full broadcast software package that my company uses just to try to learn the product. But this kind of rolls directly into what we're doing tonight. We're talking about home media systems. You know what? I think I just completely screwed that up. You guys never saw me, did you?
No, I did indeed see you, Tim.
Oh, you did see me. Okay.
Yeah.
We are talking about home media. Basically, you build your own video on demand for at home using Xbox Media Center. My new favorite and what our other two well, Tony and Vivek here both really like. I know, Tony, you were starting to go into it, which is the Plex Media Center.
Absolutely, yes. I am enamored.
Now, I've been using Xbox Media Center for years. In fact, I remember using it on the original Xbox, which was quite a feat because you had to hack the thing to get it on there and everything else. So when did you start messing around with these, Tony?
So I first started messing around with media type server stuff, or it's media software back in 2005, and like a lot of other people, I know that one of our old leaders, Jonathan Danforth, had mentioned in an email that he had seen the Kaleidoscape interface and fell in love and wanted to do something similar, but like a lot of people couldn't afford it. So I was a very similar kind of deal. I'd seen Kaleidoscape. I knew I wanted it. I wanted to have all of my movies, all of my music, all of my media in one location. And so I started looking at that, and I got started actually with Windows Media Server, or Windows Media Center, I guess it was called back then, running on an XP machine back in 2005. And that lasted for probably about a year, certainly long enough for my wife and children to get addicted and know that we were going to be a home theater PC kind of family. But I also knew that I did not want to continue to manage that box. So I want to say it was 2006 or 2007 that I ended up switching over to XBMC and running on just PC hardware. And I stayed on XBMC until about, I want to say 3 months ago, along those lines. I've been a long-time XBMC user on a lot of different platforms, several different operating systems, up to and including even trying to use the second iteration of the Raspberry Pi before the new 2 came out. And that didn't last long, but tried it on a lot of stuff, loved it. Kept hearing people talking about Plex. I thought it was lame because it was built off of XBMC, and I was acting like a purist snob, and so I wouldn't go anywhere near it until I gave it my first taste, and I'm not looking back. I'm definitely a Plex fan, new Plex fan, and I'm not going back. I love it.
I kind of agree with that. The whole draw that I had to Plex was I got tired of having to manage all my media by hand.
Agreed.
And it sounds like you started also as well, way before we had all the choices we have for streaming media. Vivek, where did you start on having your own home media systems?
So I started, and by the way, for anybody watching, I'm still dressed up from work. I really wanted you to see me looking all pretty. But the second I turn on my webcam, everything dies. So that's me. That's what you're looking at. I might actually be on the soccer field. That's the second best way to look at me. I started back in 04 when everything was home theater PCs and I was using SageTV and PCs at every location, and when Sage came out with their extenders, I tried those out and fell in love with, oh my God, I don't have to, padiddle with video drivers and audio drivers and sync issues and Windows updates, taking everything out. And then in 2011, when Google bought Sage, I bought a couple extenders, but I was getting a little concerned about what happens when they die. Please, God, don't make me go to a home theater PC because I hate it, right? I did try to get one laptop working with the TV. Massive HDMI issues, holding sync, keeping the image. And so that led me to Plex, because what I realized is Plex can run on the Roku, on the Google TV, on the Android TV. And so I decided to see what I could do there. And when I realized I could actually keep using my PC as a DVR, using Sage as the back end, and then I could have a single device on the front end. In my case, it was, so all my path to Plex was appliance-based. I can use one appliance called, the Roku, right? And I can pull up Netflix, I can pull up Amazon, I can pull up Hulu Plus. I can even point it at the Sage recording directory and use Plex to stream locally stored TV. And if that wasn't enough, there's more, right? The problem with Google buying Sage is that they shut down development while Plex is going strong. What this means is, if I want to stream it, if I want to watch a TV show or anything in my library, either on a laptop, on the Roku, on my phone, on my tablet, no matter where I am, I don't have to do anything, and it handles the watched status. So, for example, my wife went on a business trip last week, and she wanted to watch one of her god-awful reality shows, right? Well, there's nothing, she had to take no action. She just pulled it up on her iPad from the hotel room as if she was here. And so to me, those two paths, the ability to run on an appliance and the fact that it can is continuing to be developed and run on a multiplicity of devices, and I don't have to do any prior transcoding. Plex will transcode on the fly. Those two things, to me, make me want to marry Plex. I love it.
Now,
I'm right there with
that's
you.
Oh, absolutely. The interesting aspect is that V, you're taking advantage of all of the remote capabilities of it that I haven't even begun to explore yet. The fact that from your home it can do the transcode and send to mobile devices like that outside of the home is huge. I had no idea that you were using SageTV. Are you using HD Home Run tuners?
I am using the HD Home Run Prime, where I can slap a cable card into it, because Comcast gets me. It's funny, I cut the cord, and 18 months later I reattached it because Comcast gave me this screaming deal where I paid for a 50 megabit down, so to add on TV to the internet was above and beyond what I was paying for the Amazon season. Amazon season passes, Hulu Plus, Netflix. It was something crazy. Like, it was only an extra $8 a month because we were watching so many shows that you needed season passes for, right?
Yeah.
So then, to me, that was a no-brainer. And then Comcast, because the competition, doubled it to 100 megabit, right? So I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with 100 megabit. But yeah, so I'm still using I'm using SageTV as what I would say the invisible backend. We never really interact with it. I mean, I have the web. I do use the web browser interface if I want to schedule a new show, which, because of Sage, I can also do on the road as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually pretty optimistic about the lifespan, because SageTV, Google just announced 2 days ago they're going to let it go open source. So now it looks like SageTV isn't going to be dying anytime soon. So that'll always be my invisible backend. And I'll just keep using Plex as what I interact with.
I think that's fascinating. We all know how Google gets bored with projects and just kills them, oftentimes inexplicably. So for you to actually get news that they're going to continue, or in some form continue with Sage, that's a good omen.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that it's open source is just awesome, right? Because that means they don't have to do Boo. Everybody else is going to jump on this.
Oh, agreed. You know, Tim and I are both big fans of open source, so that's music to my ears, friend.
Yeah.
Well, one of the nice things about it is that if we step back a little bit, my experience with my own home on demand, when I started with composite video on a smaller television. You know, it just basically, I was ripping DVDs, putting them into files, and having it play with Xbox Media Center, and literally an Xbox, Gen 1 Xbox. And at that time, you know, the bandwidth we have today was unheard of. You either had to live in one of the major metropolitan areas that had it, or it was so ungodly expensive at that time, it just wasn't an option. So I took my DVD library that I had, ripped it so that it was easy to deal with. Then I ran into, well, let's add it to the bedroom. Well, now I have a second box. You have to manage the library there, and so on. Its expandability is very limited with Xbox Media Center. You can put it on a central server to centralize the database, but that was a ton of work.
Yeah.
And then talking to both of you guys about Plex one day after one of the shows, I decided to give it a try, and that's what blew me away was the management on the server end. Plex on the server end, you point it at your media libraries and you're done. It goes out, it looked for all of the metadata, it grabbed it, it profiled it, it put everything in groups. My wife's going nuts over the fact that you can search based on actor, and it will bring you everything, absolutely every bit of data. Now, I use an HD home run for recording over the air, and it still can pull some metadata, which I was very surprised just off of the name. I'm naming the files of what the show was, an episode number, and Plex is pulling out from its databases that it has access to all the information about that episode, which really surprised me.
Oh yeah, dude, that's what I do with Sage. Just traps the title, season, episode, and it goes and fetches all the metadata. Nothing. I gotta do nothing.
It does a hell of a job with it. I don't know what they're using for that back-end metadata management, but you know, grooming XBMC got really old, and especially if you happen to brick a machine and had to rebuild the thing, I could literally spend not hours but days trying to groom a collection and trying to use various different services for that back-end metadata management, and frankly it was painful, at least by comparison. With Plex, it grabs the info, it grabs it right, and presents it really well. We're like fanboys.
Well, one of the points was my brother was asking me, why in the world do I even still mess with these? Because today you've got all the streaming media. I can stream anything from Netflix, Hulu Plus, Amazon. Well, we had a major internet outage in this area for almost 3 days straight. You can't watch anything over streaming now. Well, my local media server, oh, look, what do we want to watch? Here you go. Having it local like that does have huge advantages. The other advantage is if you're stuck in a land where you have metered internet, the last thing you're going to want to do is spend it all on Netflix.
Yeah.
My daughter had wiped out, you know, Daddy stopped giving her free cell phone internet anymore because of how much she went over streaming Netflix and YouTube and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and also on top of that, I'm ripping my own DVDs, not just DVDs, Blu-rays now, and I'm getting better quality at full 1080p here from my local system than I can over streaming. And with 4K coming around the corner, there's no way. I know the technology. I know they could do it, but not with the bandwidth that we can buy in the United States, not 4K.
Oh, I actually have a hard time buying DVDs because on my 10-foot projection screen, I mean, God, it looks like crap, man. And who wants to watch 480p on 120 inches, right? And the nice thing is, I built this mega array, and I don't think twice about buying Blu-rays now.
Well, and guys, that's a great segue, because Tim started to talk about bandwidth, and he started to talk about just having that local storage and the beauty of it. One of the things I think we should talk about is what that back-end server kind of looks like, and talk about the storage needs and what kind of different options there are, what you guys are using.
Mine looks like this.
Oh, it's wireless.
Yeah, it's completely wireless, including power. This is the twin to what's currently running in my basement right now, which is pretty sad. I've got a 72-inch tall, 19-inch rack that only has 2 shelves in it now. One of them has this on it. The other one has Sonos players. So, but I got a really good deal just to try to do it real cheap. I got a really good deal on these old discontinued HP data vaults. They came with Windows Home Server on them, and it was effortless to pull the drive, put it into a new machine, install Ubuntu, and then the Plex Media Center. I put it back in here. It's all ready to go. I've got 4 drives. I got plenty of space. Mm-hmm. It does not have a lot of horsepower for the transcoding. But I'm just starting off.
Limitation? Have you run into that being a limitation yet, Tim?
Not yet. My playback units are either a full-blown my full-blown XBMC that was in the living room is now running Plex. Plex Home Theater, specifically under Linux. And I'm also experimenting with, and I showed you guys this earlier, this is the Raspberry Pi 2. The Raspberry Pi 2, it has plenty of horsepower to deal with it. And this little bitty guy here is just nothing more than an IR receiver that I've got on the GPIO to act as IR for like the guest bedroom, our bedroom, things like that. Mm-hmm. The wife so far likes it, mostly because it has a little bit more response than the Roku 2s that we have. I need to purchase a Roku 3, and I'm hoping that Plex is far more responsive on that.
It is. By the way, so I have the 2XS and I have the 3. The 3 is just faster, and I actually was thinking about picking up another 3 to replace the 2XS, but I'm going to hold off just to see if the 4 is really going to come about in early Q2 as conceived.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that where I don't really need to transcode because of those devices. Now, mobile devices, I can see I'm going to need that transcoding, and I think that little server is going to fall on its face at that point. That has a little tiny dual-core mobile M in it, and which actually not even a mobile M. I think that thing is an Atom-based processor, only like a 1.8 gigahertz. So there's no processing power in there. Enough to do what I need right now, and it was a good, inexpensive first step.
And super low power consumption too, which is nice.
Oh, exactly. That's another one of my goals, is trying to lower power. But I'm right now, my recordings are nothing more than some scripts that are pulling things from my 2 HD home runs.
Sure.
That's why I was really interested in this whole episode is what V's using for his back end for recording, and the SageTV with the HD home run primes. That was what I was trying to. The next key was getting the full cable line up. V,
you mean the voice recognition isn't cool? I got voice recognition working for you, man.
That's really cool, but being able to record Game of Thrones is what's important to my wife.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
So that's my next question is about that. With your setup, you're using the SageTV on another machine, or is it on the same machine?
Yeah, V, if you could kind of walk us through that, because that'll kind of dovetail with the, talking about our back-end storage. If you could talk about your rig, and then I'll jump in later on.
Okay, so do you see this really complicated diagram?
Yes.
Indeed.
All right, so I'm going to, just for the viewers out there, I have 3 slides. I'm going to tell you in 10 seconds each what each 3 of them are so they know what's coming. I have one picture that walks through the physical hardware and what is where. I got another one that talks about software. I do have some notes in here that are key. I learned the hard way. And the last one is flow control. What is installed where? So what do you want me to walk through first? Do you want me to walk through the hardware and what's installed where, or the software side? Or do you want me to give you? Okay.
Yeah.
And what I'll do then is I'll try and cover this in like 2 minutes or less, and then let y'all drill down in details, questions as you have more. All right. So I have one mega server in the basement. It's an i5, which Plex needs to transport HD streams on the fly, which is why that's. I didn't need to go higher than. Well, if I were to buy now, I might go bigger than an i5. I think it's like a 3 gigahertz, somewhere in that neighborhood. 16 gig is unneeded. I put 16 gig in only because you're building a machine. You may as well blow it out to start off with. It's just as hard, right? And this houses all the hard disks, right? This one machine runs CQC, which I have for home automation, the Plex server, as well as SageTV. So I kind of have it all goes back to the mainframe, right? I have one mega server, right? And this one also connects to all the various devices, which is another reason I wanted to over-spec it to a degree. You do not need this kind of power, although I guess i5 nowadays isn't that much power. You don't need this much power if you're just doing any one of these things. I think any one of these things you could almost run on a freaking Pentium probably, right?
Yeah.
But running all this stuff, and actually let me cycle down here for a sec. Where is the basement server? Not only does it run Plex, UC, SageTV, I also have Picasa, Dropbox, Google Drive, Amazon Music Downloader, right, and then some CQC software drivers. So I have a lot of stuff running on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in each of the different locations, all I have is, where is it here? I got a Roku 3 displaying on the living room and the bedroom. I got a Roku 2 XS, right? And so these are just dumb clients, really, running off of this thing. So the big box is what does all the transcoding. And generally speaking, it is insulted by how little. I mean, I think I take a look at it, and for the most part, it runs at like, I don't know, well under 20% CPU utilization. However, what I have is SageTV. Where's my media notes? So SageTV, when the HD Home Run Prime traps the files, it traps it at like 8 gig an hour, 12 megabit, right? Mm-hmm. And frankly, even my 16 terabyte was starting to fill up. I was down to like 2-3 terabytes left because what I do is I record entire series, and if it gets season, to avoid a whole other Firefly situation, right? That's when I'll start watching them, right? So, for example, what is it? Revolution. I just started watching again, right? The 100, right? I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to renew it. Maybe I'll start watching it now, right? But the thing is, that's a lot of space, and I do this. I mean, I record shows like candy, right? Like, oh, let me just record everything on the planet. So what I have is SageTV will automatically convert some of these shows from 8 gig an hour effectively down to 1 gig an hour. So and 12 megabit to 2 megabit, and I'll be honest with you, even on the 10-foot screen, I don't notice a huge downgrade in quality. There are some shows I am going to keep at the native resolution in case I ever materially I mean, I have a 1080p projector, but in case I ever upgrade that, I'll leave that. So the times that there's 2 things that could suck up the CPU on the mega server, right? Plex, CQC, SageTV natively won't do boo. If, however, I have SageTV, there's an option that says as soon as you're done recording, transcode it. That'll suck up some CPU, and then Plex, for those that I do not downgrade, let's say I don't touch the live shows, right? Game of Thrones, wouldn't touch that one, right? So then, if you want to transcode that on the fly to a tablet, that's going to take some horsepower.
Sure.
So imagine Plex is going to transcode Game of Thrones on the fly while SageTV is downgrading your, I don't know, whatever shows you guys watch that you're willing to downgrade, right? So if you're going to run 2 concurrent transcodes, that's where you may, my opinion is, what's it, like an extra $200 to get a beefy CPU?
Yeah.
Just go blow out the CPU now, because an upset wife is a lot more than $200.
Very much more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's really the server question there.
Yeah, it's a busy
I'm
box.
happy to walk through anything else or whatever y'all want to do.
Well, I'll jump in real quick and just talk about my back end real quick, because one of the things that I find interesting about Plex is that all 3 of us have a different back end server running to make the same end result happen. Tim's running his on Linux, you're running yours on Windows, and I'm running mine on a FreeNAS/BSD box, and which is like the new love of my life. I think I love that thing more than I love my children. But I'm just basically using a good-sized FreeNAS box. It's nothing fancy. Similar in specs to what you've got going there, V, except that I actually don't have near that much storage. I think right now I'm sitting on 6 terabytes of usable across 8 disks. So I've got 2 parity disks that I can lose without losing any data. And it's obviously something that I can expand. So I just plan on doing that a drive at a time as I feel more comfortable with the 3 terabyte drives. And so it'll build over time. But what I find interesting really more than anything else is that we're using 3 different operating systems, and yet Plex works with all of them and allows all of us to have happy families. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah. And that's one of Plex's strong suits, big selling points is it doesn't matter what you run on, it doesn't matter what you render to, it'll just work. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's where, Plex is so darn cheap, that I don't get, right? They must have a huge install base to be remotely profitable or worth their while.
Sure.
But that's where I'd pay triple or quadruple.
Well, and it is cheap. That's one of the things, you can run Plex completely free and never actually give them a single penny, but they do have a number of different add-ons and features that you get if you do get a Plex Pass, which is $5 a month or $40 a year, so you can save some money there, or you could spend $150 one time and get a lifetime Plex Pass.
And by the way, viewers, don't be a cheap ass. Spend the $150.
Yeah. It's well worth it.
Absolutely. I was on the fence about it for the longest time until I really looked at what the Plex Pass gives you. If you actually start expanding into the portable devices, where I saw the biggest advantage is that I can put it on all of these different Android tablets for free. You can use the free app, and as long as you get the Plex Pass, it works. Yep. That's a huge thing, and if I know, we're all talking about some of the higher ends. V, you've got like the most highest end. Tony, you're next up, and I'm trying to do it on the cheap, but you can do it even cheaper. A good example is that Raspberry Pi. That Raspberry Pi with a hard drive is a single playback unit, and I'm going to explore that as well sometime this summer for camping, basically.
Oh, sure.
I was thinking of
$50 for your Pi in a case. Throw a $100 external hard drive on it. The only cost you're really going to have is either putting a solar array at your campsite or some sort of you build like I can't even think of what it's called now, an inverter from the battery at your car.
Exactly. Except for I was thinking of embedding it in one of those portable DVD players.
Yeah.
So that way it's just an open clamshell device. So, but that's a whole other thing. But you can build a standalone single box if you have only a single television and you want to have a media center with all of this capability. You can build just a single unit. And you don't have to go Plex. At that point, you can go XBMC because XBMC on one machine is very doable. Until you decide to... Oh, exactly. Until you decide that you need to upgrade it, and then you have to... that's a rabbit hole that consumes an entire weekend. And a lot of this stuff you have to just leave alone. which is one thing that my personal draw to Plex is that, you mean I don't have to update this on a regular basis? I can just treat it like a toaster.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I realized I have a large amount of spare time not having to maintain equipment, and that was the huge part. Another huge draw for me to it as well. I don't have to maintain a database. I don't have to maintain the server. I don't have to maintain the playbacks. It's just, it's an appliance.
Yeah. And, I brought up, how beautiful XBMC is. That is definitely one area where I'll give them the nod. There's a ton of amazing skin development done on XBMC where they can present your music, your TV shows, your movies, in my opinion, in a much more beautiful fashion. I mean, I'm not really shy about saying I personally think Plex is fugly. I just don't really care if it's fugly. It presents metadata as I want it to, accurately, and I have all my music, all my movies, all my TV shows in one simple interface that isn't making me any more bald than I need to be.
Exactly.
In fact, I'll give up form for function in that case. But anyone who tells you that Plex is good looking compared to XBMC should probably take a piss test.
Well, for a good example is OSMC, which is the XBMC build just for the Raspberry Pi. It's got some examples on their website of what it looks like, and it's got some very pretty, you've got skins that you can use on these things to make it just look fantastic.
Sure.
I would not be surprised if that doesn't come around for Plex, because Plex does have its roots in XBMC. But moving forward from a single unit to multiples, that's where I started to see XBMC starting to fall down, especially also when you try to add in television recording. Now, SageTV, I have not messed around with. I've done the several different versions under Linux. I used to have a server downstairs that had a whole bunch of ATSC tuner cards, which was again another nightmare to deal with. Mm-hmm. And then HD Home Run came along, and this is a beautiful thing. So I guess why don't we jump into software? V, why don't you want to start it there?
Oh, I happen to have a slide on software.
Fancy that.
No, I'm not really a management consultant by training. Oh, okay, so two ways of looking at it. I'm going to walk you all through both the software architecture as well as the flow of control, because as Tim had alluded to earlier, I have over time built this thing up to work pretty darn well, but at the same time it does take some setting up. So as I said before, on the server it's pretty simple. Actually, everything runs on the server. I got Plex, CQC, and Sage here, right? I do have a light gaming PC, but it doesn't actually do it's not integrated with any of this stuff, right? So with that as a reminder, and my only truly user interactions are with these Rokus, right? Let's go, which way to go here? Here then on the, again, as I said, on the living room PC, here I have, I'm sorry, not living room, the basement, right? Here's all those things I have in the basement. On the Roku, the channels I have, basically the three major ones. I actually terminated my Hulu Plus membership because I reinstated Comcast. I have Plex running there. In the future, AutoWare is still in beta. That is voice recognition for your Moto 360. How I have these things working is, what most people are used to using is their hands. Ew, gross. You know where my hands have been, right?
Some awesome dirty jokes in there.
I'm not drinking at all on this podcast, by the way. Oh crap! What did I do? Okay, so obviously I could use the Roku remote. I didn't put that in here because that seems pretty darn obvious, right? But if you take a look at my hands, I have a Sonos, so that'll interact directly with the Sonos. If we are talking about Plex, all that is routed via CQC, right? Mm-hmm. So I could either use the CQC interface there, If you want to get pretty cool, though, either NFC, location, or voice, really, for the interest of Plex, right? What I'll have is auto voice. Will is an app. It traps. It does the voice recognition. It tells Tasker what to do. Tasker itself will call a CQC URL, which will then control the Roku. If I have Plex up on the Roku, that's where I can say, okay, Google, pause TV, right? And it'll pause the TV using that path. But other than that, if I was just to pursue the plain, simple, no voice recognition, no NFC chips, right? None of that stuff, or even have the doorbell pause the TV, right? That'd all happen via CQC trapping, the doorbell, which I have linked in via the Elk, and it could tell Plex to pause, right? If I was just pursuing a real simple entry-level kind of solution, this is remarkably simple. Literally, all you do is install SageTV on the back end, have it record off to a folder, right? Have Plex monitor that folder, and I could even pull up my Plex screen, but there's not much to it. I mean, it's really pretty boring, right? It just says, go look at this one drive. What is it? It's the television database, I think, is what their agent is called, right? So as long as you name your file with title, season, episode, if it takes you more than 15 minutes to set up Sage and Plex together, then you need to take Anthony's piss test.
Yeah.
There's not much to it.
Yeah, it is.
Was that you looking for there, Tim?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then good example to continue on that, the back end for Plex. Actually, I'll bring my mouse over here. This is mine right here, which is showing on deck, which is pretty much what my wife has already put up, and is actually probably playing. No, it doesn't show her playing right now, but that's what she's got currently listed. And then my recently added, and going down through my channels, which unfortunately, sadly, these two channels are now dead. But the back end is absolutely easy to deal with. The fact that you can, I hate touchpads. I can go through, and all of this is just so easy to deal with here.
Yeah.
There's showing some of this, some of the settings and everything else, but the fact that that stuff flabbergasts me that it's that simple. Now with SageTV, do you have a nice web interface as well?
Yeah. Actually, let me do this. Let me stop the screen share for a second. Let me share my whole desktop here. Entire screen. Share. And you can look at yourself looking so pretty Inception-wise for a sec. Yeah. Alrighty there. Slowly.
I was hoping to catch a password there.
Yeah, his password's 5 stars.
Yeah, that'd be my next DIY project, just trying to get into your network.
Yeah. It's I love Anthony is the password, but don't tell anybody. Okay, so this is the main screen for the Sage interface, and so all I have to do when I want to, add a new favorite is you can search the, I usually go by search EPG, right? And then you type in the name of whatever it is you want to look for, right? And whatever it is, right? And you pull it up, right? And then you search, and it comes up, and then you can add it to your favorites, right? So this is the only, well, 0, because Constantine's not on now. I don't know what's on now. I'm sure there must be some kind of Real Housewives on now, right? So then, you take a look at it. You can, you click Add to Favorites, right? And then you have all your favorites in here, right? I got a whole lot of favorites, right? And then you pick one, right? And what you can even do is set up, first runs and reruns, pick a given channel, auto delete. Where is it here? Automatic conversion, yes or no, right? And then typically when I convert, my default is MPEG for delete the original file, right? So that's how I keep my space utilization down to a minimum, right? I'm sorry, you know what I should show y'all? The one flaw in this plan is, oh, that's me looking so pretty, but that's the wrong screen. All right. Okay, the flaw in this plan is if you want to watch live TV, right? So for live TV, where did my mouse go? Are you guys still there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm using my best banners.
Okay. What I did is I got a with my Comcast subscription, right? Cable card is like $2. They include one set-top box. No way around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the cable card is like $2 a month. So what I did is I did run one single cable to the living room for the Comcast, and so that's what I use. And this is not their DVR package. This is literally just for like whatever, the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Or World Cup in my instance, right? And so that is the one flaw, is unless you put a PC on your TV, you can't watch live TV. But I don't want to do that, so I just, like I said, I got a set-top box since it's free. So yeah, so Sage is pretty easy as well. And
so
if
you're actually using that ratty Comcast box then? You didn't put it in a drawer in the garage or anything?
I had until the World Cup was on.
Okay.
Then I put it back up. Yeah. So that's the oh hey, the 100's on tonight. Sweet. So that's where, and by the way, the other cool thing is you'll see here available 7 terabytes, use 5.8. Mm-hmm. 2 weeks ago, this was almost full, and that's where I was sitting there going, do I add another 20 terabytes? Because, you know, it's one of these, if I'm going to add 4, I'm just going to build another array, and I'll just add 20 terabytes because it's so cheap. Mm-hmm. And that's when I discovered what Sage can do is this video conversions, right? Where it will, hold on, let me clear all the completed ones, right? And I can even do this here. Oh, I got nothing queued up. What I can do is I can take a look at what I have taken up a ton of space, right? And so, for example, I know I have a ton of Law and Orders that are taking up way too much space here. I had like 8 terabytes of Law and Order alone, right? So what I could do is, or whatever, you know, soccer, right? Where I can pick whatever it is I want to downgrade, right? So I check, right? Action on selected, convert the media file, right? And then what are your options? I want to delete the original file, down convert this. So I submit it, and, you know, bada bing, it's going to go from 8 gig an hour down to 1 gig, and that's all there is to it, to down convert. There's no command lines I got to memorize, and there's none of that stuff. So the web interface is pretty sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to look into Sage. That's pretty slick.
And it's open source, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I like it.
And not only that, there's, I don't know, you know, this is Sage Job Queue, and you got to know, I can't remember, some programming language, and you can even do way cooler stuff, or, you know, you can not, and just use the easy stuff like I do.
Well, that's certainly simpler than what I'm using. I had a second box. I actually have it, well, not right now. Previously, when I had all of the ATSC cards, I used a program, basically a Linux machine with a program called MythTV, and it was completely designed around that same aspect, except for its claim to fame was they had a system that as soon as the recording's done, it processes it and removes all commercial breaks.
Oh, brilliant.
Does Sage do that yet?
Sage can do that too. Oh my God. How about this? I looked into it, and what I noticed is on my shows, the commercials weren't detected 100%, and I'd lose like 4 critical seconds. You know, like a lot of these shows, right before you go to commercial, it would, you know, there'd be some kind of pivotal moment, right? And so I kind of got annoyed at either missing that, was because what I had comp skip enabled, so it wouldn't delete it, crop it out of the file. There are some Sagers out there who say that they have a newer program to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. But for me, frankly, with a Roku is easy enough where Oh, I'm sorry. With the other thing, with Plex, hold on. Where should I show? Where can I show you here? With Plex, one of these settings somewhere is generate media image files, right? And so that way, when you skip ahead, it'll actually show you on the screen, on the TV when you hit the right arrow, what the image is of the particular scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I mean, I will warn you, we'll take. Oh, somebody's watching something. Who's watching TV? Monk. God forbid we don't watch Monk sometime in this house. Good God. Yeah, so one of these settings here somewhere is going to be generate this image, right? I can't remember where it is. It's somewhere in here, right?
That's a key that I've been looking for.
No, yeah. Well, you could talk and I'll find it at some point.
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with
funny.
that, so I'm not sure where it'd be.
Oh, no, you know what it is? It's in the advanced ones. Hold on. Where's the advanced? Oh, show advanced. There it is. All right. You guys have to talk while I look.
All right, I'll ask a silly question then. Tim, you're
Okay.
up. On your Plex rig, what is a movie that you've watched recently that you'd recommend to folks? Just for sport.
Oh my
Let's
God!
see
Actually,
here.
as he's thinking, I have to jump in and interrupt you for 1 second. The third awesome thing about Plex is you can share libraries with friends. So
Yes.
right now, I
Yeah.
have one friend in London, another one in Boston, and so the three of us share our libraries, and so we can watch any movie in anybody else's library. My London friend records all this BBC stuff, so I can watch BBC that he traps. He can watch the stuff that I trap. That is another third killer. You wouldn't switch to Plex because of that, but the ability to share library streaming is awesome.
As long as you've got the bandwidth to support it, that's one of the things that I don't do. I'm on a pretty sketchy network because I live up in the hills, and so I'm not willing to share with others because I just don't have the bandwidth to support it. Cats like you who are getting, wicked deals from Comcast on tons of bandwidth, do it. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I only used maybe 200 gig last month.
Oh, I don't know. We probably still manage to use somewhere in that 200, 250 range. We've certainly gotten the letters from our provider in the past, but we're doing it pretty slowly, and we also bring a lot of stuff in. Like I use YouTube Downloader at night when we're sleeping to bring stuff down, and that way my wife can watch some of her conspiracy theory nutter stuff during the day when I'm not around, and it doesn't eat into my bandwidth when I am at home.
Yeah.
Speaking of nutter stuff, here's your answer. I actually rediscovered this movie not too long ago. So, good old Buckaroo Banzai across the eighth dimension. Corny and bad. Although it's got Jeff Goldblum in one of his very first movie exposures. So,
yeah, I remember that. That was a fun movie. It's been many, many years though. You got a movie recommendation, Vivek, while we're at it?
Dude, we have such
Are you
a
too
bizarre
distracted?
household. No. We watch. So for me, my big thing isn't the movies. I have a new series recommendation for you. The 100. It's on the CW, so you do need I'm sure it must be available streaming somehow, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say any more about it. It is sci-fi related. It is one of the first. It's a truly unique concept, though. It's not anything that you would have heard of before. So.
Interesting. I'll look.
By the way, here's the whole media index file thing. So you got to click Show Advanced. So you go to your server, right? And you go to Library, click Show Advanced, right? And down at the bottom, generate media index files during scans. This will take some CPU, a minor amount. It more importantly will take up space on your hard disk. But now when you're on the Roku, I'm thinking about this. It's the Roku. I can't remember what are the clients, but when you go to skip ahead, it'll show you the scene. So you can go literally right to the screen. So to me, the existence of this means I don't really give a crap about skipping, a comm skip or comm delete function.
I've got a new
awesome.
setting to. Yep, I've got a new setting to add. I'm writing it down as we speak. That's cool. All right, I'll jump in and give my movie recommendation. Kind of an oddball, probably never even heard of it, but it's an Australian horror film called The Babadook, and it may be the best scary movie I've seen in many years, and I'm a fan of scary movies. So it's The Babadook, and it's sort of a horror/monster film.
Right, I'll just search for that. So, V, you pretty much given up on all the streaming services such as Hulu and Netflix, or
we use Netflix and Amazon immensely. However, what we do with Amazon, well, actually we do with both of them, obviously, is the free movies that they offer, and the kids, they'll watch Plex now and again. Actually, I should show you this here because I think this is a freaking trip, right? Say hello to yourself again real quick here. And where's my architecture diagram? Somebody was hassling me about being mean and not giving the kids, because you'll see here, there's nothing that says kids room, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Right. They're kids. They have their own Chromebook, in their home. They will sit there on their iPhone or an iPad, sitting in front of the 50-inch high, 1080p or the 10-foot projector screen, and they'll be watching the iPad on the couch, right? Yeah. And so I think that is certainly the way of the future, right? The kids, they don't care about this fixed location concept.
Sure. And they'll also compromise on quality, I've found as well, at least with my 3 kids. They're not, checking out the pixels and resolution, and they're not looking for high dynamic range, and they certainly couldn't tell you the difference between, Dolby and DTS. They just want to watch what they want to watch, when they want to watch it, where they want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My daughter thinks I'm a complete dork that I've got to turn on the surround sound and everything else. Oh, just a minute. We got to set up. No, you can't sit there. You're blocking a speaker.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting close to wrapping up here. We covered a ton of information. Anything else to add? Someone trying to get started in this, I'm trying to take the cheap route, but I'm running into more and more that you absolutely do need to get the Plex Pass, especially if you're going to have more than just a couple of devices. And Plex is obviously running on almost anything. When you were talking about FreeNAS, now I've actually heard that there's some, like, QNAP can even run Plex server? Has either of you guys heard that?
No, but I've never really looked much at the QNAP stuff. It doesn't surprise me because I know that they have aggressively pursued a lot of the NAS folks. Either they pursued them or the NAS developers pursued Plex and getting it ported. But I know it'll run on like ReadyNAS and Synology and some of the other big players.
But the big thing that I find that's awesome about all of this is that you can start small. You don't have to jump directly into what V has with full voice control and absolutely everything.
Yes, you do.
No, and you don't even.
I need help. I need somebody to bounce ideas off of.
I've got a color coming. I kickstarted it, and now with the voice capability, that just might solve some of the other issues too. I'm kind of interested in that. But at V, what you've got is something that is to behold. You are able to do some home automation in your home that some of us that do with the really high-end Crestron AMX and Vantage that we currently can't even accomplish. The voice control is just getting there in the pro stuff, and you already have it. But starting small will expand to, and you can expand to the sky. What would be a really good tip that that you have for someone who really wants to get started in this, but they don't know? What would be the first good first step for them?
Just install Plex, right? And whatever your local storage mechanism is, if it is manually ripping DVDs or Blu-rays, if you happen to have a PC-based DVR, I know what is it? I know XBMC's got some, right? There's even Windows Media Center, right? So what I would say is literally the first step is just install Sage, try it out, get that thing working. If you don't know anything, and then try getting it working on a multiplicity of devices, right? So once you have some content to feed into Plex, I think that you would really enjoy this on-the-fly transcoding to a bunch of different devices.
Agreed.
And because to me, if you don't have the value, you don't want to set this thing up for the sake of setting it up. Set it up so it's useful. And so for me, that was my path. Was in the beginning, I wasn't really wild about Plex because I couldn't get it to work quite right. But once I got it to work, to stream to the iPad, to the tablet, to whatever, that's when I was like, oh, this is interesting. Now this is cool. That kind of gave me the motivation to keep going.
Yeah, build on those small successes.
And successes that the wife can see.
Amen.
Oh, yes. And the nice part is if you really are not sure, I found that you can do the Roku app. Install it. It will work for 15 days for free, just so you can try it out. Same with all of the other smaller apps, which is neat that you can see. Is this going to work for you? And there are other options. And I know there's things that we didn't touch on, like ripping DVDs and Blu-rays. That's a whole complete another show with some legal gray areas.
Indeed.
I have a process that works very well for me, and it's not that hard to find a process out there. There's a ton of information out there on the internet for it. I found one of the things I have been looking for Plex for a while. That generate media images. This is gold. This is going to be huge, making that Roku a little bit more usable for myself.
Yep.
That was one of the little things that I was like, that's clunky, and that removes a clunky that I was worried about.
To me, that takes
that's awesome
for me from being sucky to awesome. That real simple thing, because the problem is otherwise. That's my dog. All right, fine. I'll pick you up here. Oh my God, Jesus Christ! It's not an 18-pound little dog. He's like a mean 400-pound pit bull.
I've seen the pictures. I know better.
Yeah, so I will tell you that, and that's the other thing about Plex is, people may get frustrated. It feels clunky, but like I said, getting that one, and it will take some time. If you have a decent Plex library, it'll take some time to scan it. But once that's set up, then suddenly, here's the other issue. If you record a show that night, it's not going to generate the media index files instantly. It may take some time. So, but then again, for us, I never watch shows the day they air anyhow, because my life is not that convenient, right? So I usually batch them up anyhow. But I think Plex, once you learn how to use it, it is pretty awesome.
Well, we're all in agreement then.
Absolutely. And Tony, your biggest advantage is that you live in an area where you don't have huge bandwidth to be able to stream everything all the time.
Yeah.
So this allows you to have that media system that works.
Absolutely.
You're stuck with that mode, which I say stuck, but it's not really stuck. It's just another option, and an option that fills a hole.
Correct. And there's trade-offs. I mean, yes, I give up having solid internet where I live, but I've had bears in 2 of my vehicles, and we had a mountain lion by the house just a matter of 2 months ago or so. So I give up some, but I gain other things, and I just make sure that I've got a boatload of media to keep the kids busy in between animal sightings.
I love how you talk like those are advantages. I do. I am envious of where you are. You've got all of the world as your backyard, and we've completely consumed yet another hour, gentlemen. Thank you both very much. This has been incredibly informative, and I hope that we help somebody else out there. All of these communities, the Xbox Media Center and Plex, have a huge community that will help you.
Yep.
If anybody has any questions, don't feel like you're stuck and you have to research it. Go to the communities. There's tons of information, tons of walkthroughs. There's videos on YouTube on how to do almost everything with this. With that, That's another DIY show. See you next time.